Hi, guys, it's Dr. Sadaf, and I just wanted to give you an update as to what is going on. So, I have opened up my practice in Chappaqua, New York, and I'm currently accepting new patients. So, I want to invite you to come and become a patient of mine. If you've been listening to this podcast, you've been listening to the episodes, you are finding so much value in all of this. I want to invite you to become a patient of mine and come see the difference with a doctor that actually has time to listen to you and support you through the transitions that you may be experiencing, whether they're perimenopause, menopause, or you're experiencing any type of sexual dysfunction. And of course, I do annual GYN exams as well. So if you're not having any problems at all and you just need a regular exam done, I am more than happy to help you out. So make sure you check out the practice. It's called FemV Health, and the website for that is www.femvhealth.com. And make sure you look that up. The phone number for the practice is 914-538-2534. And make sure that you go and check it out. Check out the website and make sure you book your appointment today. Also, I have just started a new Facebook group. It's called It Might Be Menopause Support Group by Dr. Sadaf Lodi, FemV Health. And I'd love for you to come and join that Facebook group, because in that group, we'll be talking about different ways that you can get support and education as you go through this important transition in your life. It's also about building a community that is going through the same things that you are. Oftentimes we feel that when we go through things in our life that we are the only one, but I'm here to tell you that you are not alone, and that there are so many other women going through the same symptoms that you may be going through, whether it's hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, vaginal dryness, pain with sex, brain fog, joint pain, dry eyes, any of those things, So come join us in that Facebook group. It's called It Might Be Menopause Support Group by Dr. Sadaf Lodi, and that's on Facebook. So come and join us in that community. And I definitely look forward to welcoming you there. And make sure that if you have any questions about any of the podcasts that I do, that you either DM me or email me, and I will create a podcast just for you, because you are a loyal listener and subscriber, and I would love to answer any and all of your questions. So if you have any burning questions that you are wondering about, please make sure that you email me at hello@femvhealth.com and let me know about your questions, or DM me on Instagram or TikTok, and I'll create an episode just for you. And as always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. As you know, I am looking to get over 100,000 downloads by the end of this year, and I'd love for you to help me out in that endeavor. And so please share and like these podcasts, download them, and let all your family and friends know, because I know there is not much information out there, and some of the information out there is not actually factual. So you want to make sure that you are getting your medical information from a board certified OBGYN that knows and has studied all of this material, whether it's sexual medicine, perimenopause, or menopause. So looking forward to hearing from you. And now to the episode. I'm an American board certified OBGYN, a mom, a Muslim, and I'm talking about sex. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast. Welcome to the Muslim Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sadaf Lodi, and this episode is everything you need to know about how to increase the intimacy in your relationship. So, of course, as always, this is not meant to be any type of religious advice. So, if you have any questions about your religion, just make sure you go and ask your friendly neighborhood religious leader. And definitely this episode doesn't really have much to do with your health. So if you have any questions about your health, make sure you go and speak with your healthcare provider. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast, because I just happen to be a Muslim woman that talks about sex. So today I wanted to talk about how to increase the intimacy in your relationship, and really what are the easy, simple things that you can do. And I know I've talked about this before, but I feel like this is a question that often comes up. And so I thought, well, you know what, let me just revisit this. And, I'm going to give you today, I will give you some very easy inexpensive ways to go ahead and increase that intimacy in your relationship. And, when we talk about intimacy, when I talk about intimacy, it's not just the physical intimacy. It is, experiential, it can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be intellectual, it can be all kinds of different intimacies. So it's not always physical intimacy that brings people closer. Oftentimes it's the emotional part of it that really brings a person together. And I find that when people are willing and able to be vulnerable in their relationship, that's when you get the most amount of emotional intimacy. So let's get started. What I want to talk about is just some things that I use in my coaching program and ways that I help people achieve more intimacy in their relationship. Okay, so the first part, the way that I usually start my coaching program is I start with, what is the mindset that you're coming in with, right? So, what is it that you've learned about intimacy in relationships? What is it that you've learned about sex? Are you coming from a sex negative perspective? Are you coming from a sex positive perspective? And where is it that you want to be? What are your goals, right? What are your goals in your relationship and for your relationship? So I think it's really important to just start with that basic concept of sex negativity, sex positivity, or sex neutrality, right? And if you're trying to go from sex negativity to sex positivity, how do you get there? And how do you even get to the median of just sex neutrality? So that's one of the things that I do in my coaching program. The second thing that I do is oftentimes it is Muslim women that come to me for coaching, but not always. I see women that are, of different ethnicities and backgrounds and religious backgrounds. But sometimes those that are Muslim, come and reach out to me for intimacy coaching. And what we do is we talk about what Islam talks about in terms of sex and what the religious scripts say. And we know that Islam is a very sex positive religion. And so we delve into that a little bit. And then one of the other things I do and that I talk about are ways to increase that intimacy and then the road forward, right? So now that you've fixed your mindset, we also go over the anatomy. And oftentimes what happens, and perhaps those that are listening may be surprised and maybe not surprised that a lot of people come into relationships not knowing their own anatomy or the anatomy of their partner. And I think that has a lot to say about the sex education of where we grow up, right? And whether or not you were part of that sex education, whether or not you were part of that discussion. And if you don't have that sex education, then that also can be a barrier in terms of experiencing pleasure or helping your partner experience pleasure, right? So we definitely go over the anatomy, we go over what, the religion says. And then lastly, this is the module that I'm going to be going over today with you. And that's really how do we move forward? How do we then, once we have all these basics taken care of, then, how do we move forward in that relationship? So the first thing that I want you to do is, so as you're listening to this, I kind of want you to work with me and kind of maybe even take notes or even sit down and kind of workshop this a little bit. So, I'd like for you to identify your goals and your values that are important to your relationship, right? So for some people, it's about spending time together. Some people, it's, sharing acts of service, or some people like to be loved on and this and that. So, I want you to know, kind of go over what your own values are, what your own goals are for your relationship. Are you trying to increase the emotional intimacy in your relationship? Are you trying to increase times and spaces where you can have physical intimacy with your partner? What is it that you want in your relationship? Then I want to go over ways that you can increase the intimacy in your relationship. And then we'll discuss how mindfulness really helps to grow this relationship. So, oftentimes I've talked about, and actually, I think I have a few episodes talking about mindfulness and intimacy. And one of the best episodes, I would have to say, is the one with Dr. Lori Brado, who literally wrote the book on Better Sex Through Mindfulness. And she talks about how that improves intimacy. So, we'll go over all of those things. So, Let's begin. So, the first thing to know is, what are your values in this relationship? What is it that you find important? And we know that our values are what guide us and really help us to create the life that we want and the relationship that we're seeking. But a lot of times we go through life not really knowing what our values are and what things are important. So I just want you to kind of think about this a little bit and think about what your values are, right? So define what kind of romantic or sexual partner you would ideally like to be and how you feel like you measure up to this, right? So think about what you want and where you are right now, and then think about how you can get there. Describe the kind of romantic and sexual partner you'd like to have, or maybe think about the partner that you have right now and how can you improve things if you feel like perhaps there's something that's lacking. And then, I don't really like to have ideals because I think that that's not realistic. So, when you have a partner or somebody that you have a very close relationship with, how close is it to what you'd like it to be? And again, how are you going to get there? And then, what is the most important thing for you in your relationship? And do you think you have the current time, or, what are the steps that you've taken to get there? So, I'd like for you to just kind of think about those questions because I think it's really important when we are trying to get from one place to another. We have to kind of look at the road that's going to take us there, and then what are the steps that we've taken every day to get there. And even if those are small little steps, it's really important that we make that effort to get to the point that we want to be in our relationship. And it's important to realize that our values are both conscious and subconscious, and both that our mindset, of course, creates a life that we're living right now. And when you bring your values, and you start evaluating them, then you can see, okay, how can I, am I living true to what my values are? And if I'm not, then how can I get there? So that's really important. Okay, so let's look at how we can increase the intimacy in your relationship. And at the end of this, I'm also kind of going to give you like a little checklist to help to increase that intimacy in your relationship. And I'll give you little ways to get that done. So, the way that we move forward. So, we all have a desire to connect, and intimacy is definitely universal. We know that. And, but oftentimes what happens is we just don't prioritize it. So, I had a client one time and for intimacy coaching, and what she realized was that she just wasn't making time in her life to connect with her partner. So, we thought of something that was pretty easy for her to do, and which was just to put the time in her calendar every single day. So whether it was a date night or whether it was like 15 or 20 minutes at the end of her day after she was done, you know, putting the kids to bed and cleaning up or whatever she had to do, she made that time, right? Because we all have 24 hours in our day. So the question is, how do we prioritize the people that are so important in our lives, and whether or not we are prioritizing them? And then what do we do to make them feel that they are really important to us? So if you want, what I would suggest, one of the easiest things, like I was stating, was for you to go ahead and put in time with spouse or time with partner into your phones. Okay. So put it in every single day where you have at least, 15 to a half hour of uninterrupted time. So that would be one of the first things that I would do. Other ways that you can do it is that it's really important to spend meaningful time, right? So we put away the phones, we put away all the distractions, and we spend that time with our partner. One way to cultivate emotional intimacy, right? So we talked about the emotional intimacy, we talked about the physical intimacy, the intellectual, and the spiritual. And one way to cultivate emotional intimacy is by, just perhaps reflecting on good memories and experiences that you've had together, keeping the lines of communication open, even when things are difficult, refraining from blame. I think sometimes what happens is that when we get upset with our partner, or if we're in a bad mood or something like that, we will, sometimes people can have a tendency to blame others. So, it's really important to not blame or hold resentment against your partner, right? Because that doesn't lead to anything good. especially during arguments or disagreements or anything like that, keeping the focus on identifying and solving the problem instead of each other's, things that you think perhaps that they did wrong or imperfections, and definitely having an honest and non-judgmental discussion about each other's feelings, right? The ways that you can actually improve and increase your intimacy in your relationship is to stay connected by your true self, right? So when you know who you really are and what values are important to you, then you can definitely give of yourself, right? And you can attain that self confidence and that calmness that you need in your relationship. So you can do this by either reconnecting with nature, hiking, relaxing, gardening, any of those things, right? Anything that brings calm and connection for you is really important, right? When you connect to yourself. Practicing various relaxation methods such as meditation and yoga, enjoying solo activities like bubble baths, maybe even reading novels, relaxing in a sauna, knitting, whatever helps you to ground yourself and helps you to reconnect with yourself is really important, right? So it's important to take care of yourself before you're able to give to others. And setting aside time to just stay away from social media. Sometimes I do that on the weekend where I will just put away my phone and not even look at it. And, especially when I go over and meet up with friends or things like that, I won't even bring my phone because I find it to be such a distraction. And I just want to be really present when I'm enjoying time with others. So, I'll put away my phone. So, try to do that regularly and see how that affects your mental health. And I bet you it really improves it. Keeping a daily journal, journaling is so important. I have to get better at doing it myself, but I think that journaling is really important because you kind of dump whatever is in your head onto that piece of paper so your head doesn't feel as cluttered and you have more clarity. Definitely trying a new hobby or learning a new skill is also something that's really important. But the thing that I think really is the most impactful and powerful in a relationship is that mindfulness, right? So it's the mindfulness, which is being present in the moment without judgment. And I think that that is super, super important. And as we know, and as we've talked about a few times, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that especially when you are physically intimate with somebody, right? When you're having sex, when you are able to be mindful in that and really focusing on the pressure and using all your senses, right? Whether it's taste, smell, touch, texture, all of those things, it really enhances the experience and it increases arousal, lubrication, and libido. And we know that because there have been research and studies done on that. So just really being present in the moment is really, really helpful. And doing that practice every single day, if you can, also brings calm and focus to your own life, right? So when you're able to just focus on something, whether it's, and one of the ways that I think it's super accessible to practice mindfulness is just to stare at an object. And Lori Brotto does this in her book, and she uses a raisin. And what she does is, she has a person take a look at the raisin and look at all the ridges and the color, and then slowly, listen to it, smell it, all this thing, and then slowly you put it into your mouth, and then you taste all the flavors and the bursts, and you put it in the front, and then feel the flavors in the back of your mouth and this and that. And really, she takes you through a whole process of being really mindful and in the moment of what it is that you're doing, right? And you're not thinking about things in the future and you're not ruminating about things in the past. And I think that that also helps decrease anxiety and stress because when we're always thinking about the future, then we're always worried, right? About something that may or may not happen. And when we get stuck in the past, then it's oftentimes very difficult for people to move forward. So really just being in the present moment will help decrease anxiety, stress, and worry. And so that's why I think it's really important to practice that. And especially when you're able to practice that in your relationship, right? So when you're with your partner, put away your phones and really just focus on what they're saying, what they're talking about, asking them how their day was, right? Because that is going to really show them that they are important to you and that you're putting everything away just to give them undivided attention. really being present and having a clear awareness of your environment and a complete understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing really helps to maintain your calm and your focus, right? And I think that that's really important. So, in terms of your relationship, right, how does mindfulness really help you to grow in your relationship? Well, if you take time every day to express gratitude, right, how would that change your relationship with your partner? Being genuinely thankful can have a positive effect on your perspective and your behavior toward others and they toward you, right? So even when things aren't always going your way, it's really important just to express gratitude, and gratitude for your own body, gratitude for your relationship, gratitude for everything that you have. You can take a few moments every morning and reflect on the people and the things in your life that you're grateful for, and definitely, also having a gratitude journal also helps. So when you're journaling and you're writing down all the things that are in your head, keeping a journal also, that a gratitude journal really helps also improve your mood and really helps you to see things and appreciate them for what they are. So, just showing gratitude in your relationship is really important to that relationship. And also, showing, expressing one of the five love languages, right? So, there's an author that wrote a book called, his name is, last name is Chapman, and he wrote a book describing the five love languages. So, really understanding what that is for you and understanding what that is for your partner is really important. So, the five love languages that Chapman describes in his book is quality time, physical touch, receiving gifts, acts of service, and words of affirmation. So, knowing what your love language is and knowing what the love language of your partner is will really help to improve your relationship, right? So, your love language may be acts of touch, whereas theirs may be acts of service. So, just knowing the way that they like to receive love and feel appreciated is going to be super helpful in your relationship. Remembering to also take deep breaths during difficult discussions. So, if you are really upset with your partner or if they're upset with you, to giving yourself time to walk away and really think about the situation is going to be important instead of you being really, both people being heated in that discussion. Other ways to increase intimacy in your relationship and to really help your relationship grow would be to listen and observe to truly understand. So, when you're talking to your partner, how much time are you spending, really listening to them as opposed to perhaps being mad or upset with them, right? So, it's really important to listen to what's being said. Take the time to really pay attention to what your partner is saying, both verbally and non-verbally, and always, approach any situation with calmness. I think it's really important that when we talk to our spouses, that we don't blame. And I think what happens sometimes is that, if you are upset with your partner, what can happen is that the communication breaks down. Sometimes there's resentment and sometimes there's anger. And so what's really important is to, if you're feeling that way, that you walk away and come back when you are not upset. Right. And what are ways that you can kind of help yourself and help that relationship is you can take walks together. You can, hold hands, and you can do things. Take, for example, cook together, right? I think that's one of those great moments where you are not only doing something together, but then you can also, I love eating. So for me, a cooking class is always amazing because you can always literally eat the fruits of your labor, right? And I think that a cooking class is fantastic for increasing intimacy in a relationship. I think also when you are working on your relationship and trying to increase the intimacy in your relationship, it's really important to also work on yourself and increase the love and compassion that you give to yourself. And so I'd like for you to think about some power thoughts of what things that you could say to yourself, right? So every morning, I'd love for you to do some affirmations. And well, affirmations are done by saying I am statements. And so, I am a great speaker. I am whatever your I am statements are, right? Start every morning with those I am statements to help increase the confidence in yourself and in your abilities. But here's some other thoughts that I think would be really helpful to help create intimacy in your relationship, right? Is one is to practice the mindfulness, which we know increases pleasure and arousal. And by practicing being present in the moment instead of worrying about the future, you can reduce stress and fully engage in your intimate experiences, right? That's super important. Two is to embrace self acceptance and love yourself for who you are right now, and let go of unrealistic expectations and exercise self kindness. And oftentimes I hear people being really mean to themselves, right? They can, they're just, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that. So I was just talking to somebody and I said, how would you talk to your 5-year-old self? And that comes from that book, Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin. And he often talks about how really important it is. And he doesn't talk about toxic positivity, but really just about how we talk to ourselves and how we show compassion and kindness to ourselves and how important that is, right? Because if you constantly berate yourself, it's not really going to be helpful. Instead, if you are able to show kindness and compassion to yourself and show yourself grace, that's really where you grow. And that's why that's really important. And recognizing that as we age, really it's a privilege, because there are so many people, as we know, with things going on in the world, that really it's a privilege to age. Not everyone gets that. And that, things change, our bodies change as we get older, and that love and intimacy also changes, but that it's okay. And that we need to embrace the beauty of the current stage of life that we're in right now, and that things always don't look the same, but that's not a bad thing. Prioritize communication. There are tons of studies on that have been done that state how really important communication is for people and relationships, and that's actually the number one factor in female sexual satisfaction is communication. Why is that? Well, it's because if you're able to communicate with your partner about the things that you like and what you don't like, then they're able to improve and help you to achieve the type of pleasure that you're trying to achieve, right? And vice versa. So communication in a relationship is so important and really is like a non-negotiable. By writing down your desires and openly discussing them with your partner, it's really, really important. Clear communication sets off sets the foundation for a satisfying and intimate connection. And making time for sex is super important. Making time to connect with your partner, making time for your relationship, making time for sex, and prioritizing intimate moments are really, really important in a relationship. Creating a sacred space for connection, whether it's through scheduled date nights or simply carving out time for each other, is so important in your daily lives. Like I mentioned about that one person that I was coaching before, she all and really, it made a huge difference in her relationship. And all she did was put that time into her phone of when she was going to sit down and have conversations with her partner. So, really important to be able to have that in your life. Increase intimacy through various activities such as holding hands, engaging in shared hobbies, or participating in new experiences. Those are all great ways to increase the intimacy. And also, sometimes you can try different things, right? So erotic fantasies promote sexual arousal and orgasm, and that may be what you're seeking. So maybe trying that. Anything routine inhibits sexual desire. So if you're doing the same thing every single day in, day out, that really is doesn't help much with desire. So sometimes changing things up a bit really helps with mood and desire and arousal. Self consciousness is anti arousal and anti desire. Definitely, depression can inhibit your orgasm and desire. So, if you are suffering from depression, make sure you go and get the help that you need. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength when you go ask for help. So, that's really, really important. And take time to really think about, what do you want your intimacy, what do you want your relationship to look like, and then really work toward those values and goals, and see how you can create those intimate moments in your life, right? Whether or not they're small, it doesn't matter. Anything small will eventually lead to big things, and making time for yourself and for your spouse is super, super important. And even just creating those intimate moments with your children, right? Doing things with them, experiential intimacy, hiking with them, going to their basketball games, going to their football games, right? It really shows them that they are important to you and that you're trying to create meaningful time with them. So, really important to see how we're spending our times and seeing what our relationships look like. And if we want them to change, then we need to change a little bit. Now, I'd love for you to go back to your partner and try these few things. So I'm going to list off a couple of things that I want you to try with your partner. And then I'd love for you to DM me and tell me how it has impacted your relationship and whether or not it's helped to improve it. So I'm going to give you some things to talk about and do. So one of the things I'd love for you to do is schedule time. So today, I'd love for you to schedule quality time with your partner and see how that impacts it. So, finding the best time for you to connect with them, and you can you can ask them. So you can say, "Hey, listen, I'd love to connect with you. When's the best time to connect? Is it morning, afternoon, evening, weekend? When is the time that we can make and create for ourselves?" Right? Date night, create a date night. So do something that is like a non-negotiable, like every Tuesday night, right? You go out with your partner and you do something special with them. So make that a priority and, have them tell you which day of the night, which day of the weekdays is good for them, right? And what do they prefer to do? Do they want to, watch a movie at night at home? Do they want to cook dinner together? Do they want to do a picnic at the park? Maybe a concert, trying a new restaurant, stargazing, cuddling, whatever, any of those things. Is just a suggestion for you to create a date night together with your partner. Exploring erogenous areas, right? Erogenous zones may help, especially when you're trying to connect physically with your partner and knowing what areas they'd like for you to focus on or, what areas work best for them. Something that I think that we just don't talk enough about is like areas you need help with, right? So if you need help, whether it's at home, at work, whatever, with the children, make sure that you ask for that, right? So we never get what we don't ask for. So if you're having, if you need help, then ask for, help with, say, whatever, chores, errands, work-related tasks, planning, childcare, whatever it is, right? What are the things that you can get off your plate so that you can focus more on your relationship and have a deeper connection, right? And so that you're not just going through tasks every single day, but instead the things that you're doing are actually bringing you closer to the type of relationship you're seeking with your partner. And lastly, what are things that you could probably outsource, right? Are there things that you can get off your plate? Like maybe, is there a cleaning service, laundry service, whatever, babysitting, grocery service, anything that helps you, that frees up your time so that you have more time to focus on the people that matter the most to you and, get things off your plate that really are not helping you to move closer to your goals and helping to improve that relationship. So, those are just a few things that I want you to focus on and think about. Perhaps you workshop this episode. Perhaps you take a listen and you're like, hey, listen, these are some suggestions to help me promote intimacy in my relationship and help me to move forward. And what are the things that I can incorporate in my life today? What's going to help me move forward in my goals? How am I going to get closer to my partner, right? And so these are just some suggestions. I'd love for you to workshop them and send me a DM and let me know how it helped to improve your relationship. And well, I am done here and it's been real and really intimate. And I hope that this episode has helped given you some suggestions on how you can improve your relationship and how you can create more intimate moments in your relationship with your partner and also with yourself. And until next time, this is the Muslim Sex Podcast. So thank you for listening to the podcast and make sure you leave us a review, share and like the podcast. And if you leave me a review, I'd love to shout you out on social media. So be sure that you share it with all your friends. And thanks for listening.